for. And my boss said, hey, we're going to move you into this new group. We're starting a child crimes unit. I said, what's that? Like, no one knew what child trafficking was.
There wasn't a word for it.
No, you couldn't even Google it. Nothing would come up. And I said, no, I can't do that. My wife and I talked about child crimes. I'm not going to do that. And I went back to my wife that afternoon, and I said, you won't believe what they asked me to do. She said, you're not doing this. You're not going to bring this darkness into our home. And I said, you're right. We've already talked about this. I won't do it. And I'm scared because I got this boss who asked me to do this. He's 6'4", 6'5", big hook mustache, boots, cowboy boots, scary guy. And
the guy you don't say no to.
You don't say no to this guy. You don't say no to Larry Frost, okay? And I had to go say no to him. So I'm practicing my speech in the mirror, like, okay, here's how I'm going to phrase this. And then what happens is really a pattern that I see throughout the rest of my life. My wife, she walks in as I'm practicing in the mirror. How I'm going to say no to this guy. And she's crying. Turns out she hadn't slept all night. And she said, we're making the wrong decision. She said, for the same reason we thought we couldn't do this, because we have children, is exactly the reason we need to do this. If it's true that there's millions of children, and to us it was still a stat at that time, I can tell you now that it's absolutely real, that number, millions of children. But she said, if it's true that there's millions of kids stuck in this, who are we to say no?
Right.
And I went back to my boss and I just said, okay, we're in. And I asked him, I said, why did you ask me to do this? Because I was a young agent still, this was super heavy stuff. And I didn't think this guy knew anything about me. He wasn't my boss, he was the boss of his new group, right? And he shocked me. He said, because you're a Mormon. I said, what?
Really?
Either you're onto something really cool or you're manipulating me, one or the other. I didn't say that.
But you thought it.
I thought it. He said, there's a power in your faith that I don't understand, but I know it's effective and you're gonna need it in this work. It turns out they were creating another group in San Diego at the same time. I was 100 miles east of San Diego in a little border town called El Centro. There's a total of 5 LDS agents in the entire San Diego, Southern California region. And 4 of the 5 were called into this child trafficking.
What year was this?
This was 2002, 2003.
I just think it's when you learn the timeline of where you're at today, I think that's also a testimony of God's hand in your life. So I just wanted to give context of the starting point. So you're sitting there and he reveals that he knows that your faith brings power.
Brings power, as we said, yeah.
And what did you do from then on?
I jumped into this and it was about 1,000 times worse than my mind could have conceived. Like I couldn't believe what I was looking at. The first case I worked, I couldn't believe how dark